Meeting to order. I don't know where Cheryl is.
Actually, he's.
We got what?
We got a quorum.
Yeah, we got a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. All right, guys. Thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. Let's get started, and let's start with meeting minutes. I'm going to start with number 2 on the agenda. Approve the meeting minutes of March 21st and April 4th. They should be in your packet here.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot in your packet.
Huge.
All right. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Shouldn't you move?
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Is this for March 21st? Should we vote on them separately, just in case?
Yeah, yes. Probably.
Sure.
So the motion was for which
Was
one?
it March 21st?
All right. And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And is there a motion on the April 4th minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve April 4th minutes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Teamwork.
April 4th minutes have been, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, I guess we'll go back to number 1. When we met at our last meeting, I'm going to be referring to page 2. David had just gone through this with me. When we voted at the last meeting, we voted on the overall budget, which was $35,312,819. And you can see that in the FinCom recommended budget all the way to the right. Mm-hmm. And down at the bottom, it starts with the $35 million. But when we voted on that, I didn't abstain. So I have an ethic. I could potentially be in trouble for that. So we're going to take another vote.
Okay.
So we already approved the $35 million, but I'm going to abstain. The DPW budgets is $1,280,021. So the remaining budget is $33,694,814. But I think I'd rather you just do it.
Why don't I just read this?
We're not there yet.
Oh. So what do you, I'm sorry.
That was the total budget.
Right.
The one,
Water.
that, I forget what that was.
Wasn't that?
Down here it says excluding water.
I was gonna say, wasn't that the water?
35.
Are you saying that DPW 4215, 30, and 40 are the ones you're supposed to abstain from?
Yes.
Yes, those budgets, yes. David, I don't remember, I know you told me what it was. It's $35,312,819, and then it's reduced by the $1.4 million. What was the 1.4?
So the 35,312,819 is what you approved before.
Mm-hmm.
That $1.4 million is the difference between this year's budget and last year's approved budget, which represents a 4.18% increase year over year. I then excluded water because, again, water sets its own rates. It has its own revenue structure. That means excluding water, the operating budget on the town side is up $1.28 million, or 4.01%. Again, I just do it from a transparency standpoint so you see it. And because of our concern with Murray is that I would think that what we're looking to do is to have you re-vote a budget of $33,694,814. You would include yourself in that vote.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, you would vote on that, and then the rest of the committee would vote on the difference, just
Okay.
because that way, in case anybody wanted to try to raise any objections.
So, I still don't understand the 1,417,000. Why would it reduce the budget?
It did-
1,004,027?
Yeah, the 1,417,027, that is the difference. See in the left-hand column, town meeting approved FY19?
Okay.
See down here?
Yeah, okay.
So the difference between 35,312,819 and 33,895,791 is 1.4 million. That is how much you are up year over year from one budget to the
The
other.
difference between the 19 approved and the 20 proposed.
Exactly.
So I wrote down in the
Gotcha.
notes.
So
Okay.
therefore, that's a 4.18% increase.
Okay.
And then you backed out the 1.2, is that water?
Yeah, so then you back out the water department, which means that your operating budget excluding water. So let's assume the town had no water department at all. then that means that the town operating budget would be up 1.280 million, or 4%. So again,
So, just so we're clear, so the budgets that, or the budgets that Mary is not voting on are 4215, 4230, and 4240 only,
in 4330.
and 4330, okay. So that's
15, 30, 40, and 4330. There's four of them.
That is
And
correct.
True Warden, no, because that's totally different. Okay.
So we should vote on the 33,694.
Yeah,
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
For
Is there a s-
33,694, 814,
Vote to recommend.
recommend,
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And then, Jerry, you handle them, the vote for the difference, right?
So-
The sum of those are.
Okay, do I have to say the, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we recommend.
Yep. So what I would do is that I would say that you make a motion to recommend a budget of 35,312,819. You already did it last time.
Okay.
Technically, you don't have to take another vote, but it's your choice. But the committee took that vote, so if you want to take the vote again, and this time Mary would just formally announce that she's recusing herself from that portion of the vote.
I would like to recuse myself from that portion of the vote, please.
Okay, so that we're gonna move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $35,312,819 for the maintenance and support of the several departments for the town and other unusual and necessary town changes, as here and specified, blah, blah, blah. So anybody wanna,
I will make the motion.
okay. Second, Scott?
I
All
will
in
second.
favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Please say
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Anybody recusing themselves?
Yes, I am.
All right, the motion is approved.
Okay. Look at that. 1 and 2 done already.
Sheesh.
We need to look at the recommendations
to
for the
go.
articles. Oh, why don't we look at page 2? Should we look at that?
Yeah, so.
Or
yeah.
we move into the articles?
So again, all I want to do is show you, because as you know, in the FinCom book, this page is listed each and every year. Your total operating budget that you just approved is 35,312,819. Then we will make a whole bunch of totals, all of your articles, your water articles, your CPC articles. That totals up to 38 million and change. The state's going to charge us somewhere around $805,000, about $175,000 for the assessor's overlay. That means your total budget at this point is $39,248,855.
Can you remind me what that assessor's overlay is?
Yep. So whenever the assessors do abatements, excise tax, or abatements for real estate, we set up an amount every single year above and beyond the budget, so that way they have a pool of money to be able to provide those abatements in.
So that's money going out. The state charges, the 804, the assessor's overlay, and then what's the 979,713?
That's the total of the
The
two.
total of the two.
Oh, okay.
So, one thing, and then we've followed, so that's basically all of your expenditures or liabilities if you were looking at a accounting sheet. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at our receipts or our assets. We're going to see that all of our estimated receipts, which is local receipts and state aid, your water articles, your free cash that you're going to spend, receipts from ambulance, CPC, estimating somewhere around $300,000 of new growth, which is new business that comes into town. That doesn't mean just commercial, that can mean residential. You have $1.2 million worth of borrowing articles in this year's budget. That's a total of $13,700,000. Your tax levy at 2.5% is $22,910. We are not raising at our full and fair. We're just raising 2.5% over last year. You already have $2.6 million of debt exclusion, primarily for the new school. So your total tax this year will be $25,500 or thereabouts. I mean, the total estimated funds is 39 million and change. And at this point, that means that we're in balance by $245. A couple of things that I want you to know is that we're 1 week ahead of schedule. This goes to a printer next week, so we're well ahead, which is great. But it also means I did all these numbers today. I feel extremely confident because everything is tied, and I've done it 3 times. But I have other people reviewing, so these may change just a little bit. The other is that I've never disclosed the borrowing articles before on this sheet. And the reason being is that technically that is not an appropriation for this year's budget. So what will happen is, and I will use the following example, the water department is looking to borrow $620,000. It may take them 6 months before they go out and are ready to actually do something with that project. When they're ready to do the project, they're not going to have to make any payments. The treasurer can then borrow whatever money he needs to borrow. He may borrow the whole thing, he may borrow a portion thereof. But because our bond rating is as high as it is, we do not have to make a first payment for 12 months. And the reason being is because we don't have an appropriation to make that payment. You're just authorizing the borrowing this year. So when you vote on your debt budgets, you're voting on last year's and the previous year's appropriations or approvals. So we don't know what that payment is going to be yet for the debt. So in next year's budget, you will have a debt line, or you will have in your CPC a debt line, and you will see what your payment is, and then you're appropriating for it. So I've met with town council. I've already sent this off to legal counsel. I did it just from a transparency standpoint, but this is not technically what matches. That goes to the Department of Revenue when we close up our books, because you're not voting on the actual appropriation. You're just authorizing borrowing. So that may come out between now and next week, just as an FYI.
So these receipts, these include the money the school gets from the state, and it includes the tuition we get from the kids coming in.
It does not include tuition that comes in from the children. I don't believe that they're charging tuition at this point because we no longer offer part-time kindergarten. Full-time kindergarten.
No,
She
school
mentioned
choice.
School choice, thank
Oh,
you.
school choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so school choice, this does not include school choice.
Does not.
That money goes directly to the school.
That's in the school budget.
That is correct. So the one that Jan's referring to is number 1 under recommended funding sources, estimated receipts, $7.766 million. That does not include the $1.4 million in school choice. That money does not go to the town. That goes directly from the state to the school's budget.
Okay.
What is our bond rating now, Dave?
AA+.
So that doesn't include the school choice money, that's it.
It's in the school budget. That's how they offset.
Right.
That
they've
does
always used
include,
that.
correct. That does include Chapter 70 funds, which is.
This includes Chapter
Yes, it
70?
does.
Oh,
And Chapter 70 funds is about $3.6 million. So this does include the monies that come from the state
Chapter
for,
70, Chapter 90.
it does not include Chapter 90, because I have listed Chapter 90 in borrowing articles, because we technically borrow the money in advance. So that's listed, so when you see a borrowing, so under articles where it says town and school articles, that $1.7 million includes the Chapter 90 funds, and then under transfers from where it says borrowing, the $1.26 million, that includes the Chapter 90 funds coming from the school. The $7.6 million includes the Chapter 70 funds, which is state aid for education. That money directly goes to the town and then is reappropriated through town meeting.
Chapter 90 is state aid.
No, Chapter 90 is highway, and Chapter
Highway.
70 is school aid.
School aid, okay.
You're very welcome. So, like I said, so these numbers might just change a little bit, but for the most part, they're pretty consistent.
So the growth is money that we expect to get in new taxes for like people building new houses or whatever like that.
Exactly.
So we may or may
Good
not
estimate,
get that.
right?
Correct. Yep. So this past year we did about 400,000.
Okay.
So 300,000. This is one way that I generate free cash.
Yeah.
Is the fact that I try to be conservative on all my numbers, because if you're not only do you not generate free cash, some towns they run deficits.
Yeah.
So the following year you got to raise it, and so your raising taxes to pay last year's expenses, and we all know that that's not a good game to be in.
Yeah.
So,
So we feel that's realistic based on what you know is
that is
in
correct.
process.
yes. So that is everything from somebody putting a porch on their house to Home Depot going in. Not that Home Depot's going in.
Isn't it Target?
No, I thought it was
should not have said
Target.
that.
I think
over
it's
by
Target.
Kmart.
Well, it was a Starbucks down by the town clerk.
Correct. The next page was a request really directly from you, is I decided to put some pretty graphics in
I know,
here.
it's very fancy.
So last year, we changed the back page a little bit where we never showed before the columns on the left, but I had done it all in black and white because I was trying to save money on the printing, and for $150, nobody was happy with me because you couldn't really read it. So I think
Much more meaningful this way.
I think so. So I think it tells a really good picture. For example, I think this is what's interesting, is that the top left-hand corner shows that 5 departments make up 76% of your budget. I mean, that's pretty impressive when you think about it. You see what your 5 largest increases in dollars year over year are. And then, and then the last one on the bottom is your percentage of revenues. So you can see that the town is highly dependent on the local tax rate.
Yeah.
And on the right-hand side, again, these are all just all your estimated receipts are. Your property taxes, your 2.5%, your debt exclusion, and it's basically all the same numbers from the previous page, just put in a little bit of a different format.
Do we know how many, let's see, taxable entities, I guess I'd call it, we spread that 558,000 over?
The assessors certainly know.
Yeah.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Just curious, thank you.
So the 22,351,000, that include the excise taxes and the budget enterprise?
Nope, because this is just personal property tax. I mean, this is personal property tax and real tax. This is not excise tax. When you look down and you see estimated receipts,
Okay.
and see
There, it's in
2.895,
It's in there.
the excise tax is in there.
Now, the free cash, we have a number of items that are gonna be paid for theoretically out of free cash.
That is correct.
Will that reduce that, or?
Nope, that free cash of 1.274 is actually what the proposed budget is spending. So you're spending if everything gets approved, you are spending $1.274 million in free cash for articles. And then, just because I want to make sure that I'm clear, is it up top under property taxes? See that's $350,000?
Yes.
That's from free cash as well. We've done that every year since I've been here to lower our debt.
Right.
So that 350 plus the 1.274 million is how much you are spending, about $1.6 million in free cash.
So that this plus this gets me to this.
Yes.
Will we have a free cash, any free cash left?
The 350 free cash up top,
Yep.
plus the free cash under estimated receipts.
1.74.
Yeah, gets you to the 1.6 that's on that first page, free cash.
Okay.
That is correct. Yes, we will have $3,900 left over. So $3,900 will roll over to next year's free cash.
We had a big chunk, this time.
So that covered the snow deficit.
Yep, I'm not covering the snow deficit this year in this budget. What I'm doing is that we have money left over in our health insurance benefits budget this year, which is what we did last year. So at town meeting, we transfer money from that budget to cover it. However, there's been a change in the law that allows us now to be able to do that without town meeting vote, just a vote of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So when we do our year-end transfers, which you recall in the past, we've always done small ones, we can now do larger ones, so we'll do them all at the same time.
Oh, nice.
All right, so for my edification here, we approved one number here, 35,312. We are showing 39,249,000 here. And when I look at here, it's 38,236. So what's the difference between what's
So-
missing on this one that's not there?
So I'm going to answer your question in a second.
Okay.
This is exactly why I was feared about putting all these pages.
Right. People are gonna be like, "What's
Because
going
the
on?"
immediate
Try to
question,
tie
if you
that.
look at it, they've got to, so first things first. If you take that 38,269,387, you'll see on this sheet, there are two negative numbers. Overlay in 175, and cherry sheet in 104. So if you take those two and you add them back up, you'll get to the 39 million and change,
Okay.
all right? The difference between,
Okay, if you added the two overlays, the 175 and
the 804, which is
804.
the number, that's the state charges, you're gonna get 39 million and change, and so you'll get whatever that 39 million.
39,249.
Okay. But just so I know, that if the question's asked, at least we can kind of back you up.
And then the 39 million is what your entire budget is. The 35 million is your operating budget. So that $35 million does not include any of your articles.
Okay.
That is just for your town departments.
And you define operating budget as,
The 35,31289 is just the operating budget, right?
Just for your, correct. Just for your budget, for your, so that's police, fire, school,
So
water.
if we voted no articles, we'd still spend that.
You'd spend 35 million. That's correct. So if you vote, every single article goes down, you'll spend 35 million. Every single article gets approved, it'll be the 39 million.
Makes plenty of sense. Thank you.
We have like 50 articles.
And that's what
All right.
is the difference.
Sounds good.
After that.
5 and 11.
Thank you, that is actually
welcome.
very helpful.
We caught up pretty quick.
It's scary,
Which ones were the consent articles? That was the very first thing that we said.
So the consent articles was 2 and 3.
yeah.
Article 1, I'm gonna have to watch last year's.
Did we have that?
Yeah, it's, the reports from all town officials is your annual town meeting book. So there's an annual book, and all of us are required by our bylaw to write a report, which we do, and it gets into this little book, and they're available there. And everybody picks it up and then usually doesn't read it. So Article 1 is actually accepting that book of all the reports from the respective officials from the previous year. So I have to see as to whether or not we actually really vote on that. We have a new town moderator, so I'm gonna spend a lot of time with him now that I'm done this part. And I'll refer to see what Jim did in the past.
Okay.
Articles 2 and 3 were consent articles.
I mean, these aren't money ones anyway, right?
Well, Article 3 is a money one because you are setting the salaries for those officials.
Okay.
But, and again, I've never understood why we do it, but every town has its own culture. Article 3, you set the budget. When you pass your budget,
Yeah.
you set the salaries at that point for those respective people. So I don't know why we do it this way, but I'm not going to change it because that's the way the town's always done it.
All right.
Do we have to vote on every single one individually?
What I would recommend is what I recommend to the Board of Selectmen is to go through each article. If everybody is cool, we just keep on moving on. If somebody has, oh no, I got a problem with that one, put a hold on it. Right? So now you get to the end, you have 3 holds, go back, and then you
Kind of
can.
like what they did.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
that's
Good idea.
saving.
Yep.
All
Okay.
right. Article 1.
Article 4.
Good.
Don't we
Did
have,
that. We just did Article 4. Article 4 was where we started.
we don't have to vote on 1, 2, or 3?
35, 3, 1,
No, we
2.
do.
Yeah, I would still vote on Articles 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
But again, 1 is, I think you vote on it at town meeting, and then 2 and 3 is actually one motion as a consent article.
I don't know, sorry, I don't know how I got ahead, but, okay.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion for
Well, we're
Article
gonna
1?
just keep,
Yeah, I
Go
think,
through.
what I would do, Mary, is I would just say, any issues, Article 1 is this, Article 2 is this, Article 3 is this, any issues, Article 4, any issues, Article 5, any issues, yep, okay, hold. Article 6, any issues, nope, Article 7, any, and then at the end, go back to the holds.
Okay.
And we can vote them as a group. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Instead of doing it each
Instead
one,
of each
just from a
motion,
time
motion
standpoint.
for each one, yeah.
But we're really good at that. We fly when we do that.
Yes, we do.
Whatever you want.
No, Article 1, do you
Oh,
hear
wait, it's
any
right.
issues? Article 2 and 3, any issues there? Article 4 is ours. Article 5, we have this every year to set the real estate tax exemptions.
Sorry, so Article 5 is what?
For the exemptions, is it only real estate tax? Yeah,
So-
the real, To people who are qualified, yeah. We do this every
Oh,
year.
Okay, yep. 500 for the,
Yeah, for the elderly widows. Did you ever find out, can people double up if they're elderly and blind, or, I know we had that conversation last
Just
year.
take the highest one.
Pick one.
Correct.
Okay. Article 6 is also another article we do every year. The town borrows the money that we're going to receive in Chapter 90 funds. Those are the funds that are used by the DPW to maintain the roads, I believe.
Just out of curiosity, what's the definition of elderly in Article 5?
65.
I don't know. It's
Probably.
either 65 or
Good
70.
question, because I'm 65.
I would
think
think so as well,
it changes now. I think it's 65 up to a certain point, and then it's going to go to 67 and 70, depending upon.
Yeah, right.
from
And
a
it should.
social security perspective,
Yeah, I
but
think it goes by
maybe
the
this
social-
is different, but, so you can go for your,
I know that in retirement services, that's what we're doing.
Everything's going to be clamoring down to town hall. Okay.
Article 7 is another repeat article. This is for the low-interest rate loans on the septic systems. Article 8 is the first one of the CPC funds. This shows the remaining balance in each of these buckets. Article 8. Article 9 is these are all the CPC articles. So this is for the town clerk, her preservation of which books? Yeah.
Records.
for 8, this is what's there now, or this is what's there after?
After.
The stuff that we said we would,
After, assuming all of these are approved. So that's town clerk. The assessors also have a preservation that they do of the historic records. Article 11 is to give the historical barn some much-needed attention. Article 12, we're continuing with the Community Preservation Fund. This is for the fish ladder, for the fish passage improvement. Article 13 is to continue spending CPC funds to maintain the cemeteries. Article 14, I have no notes. Oh, this is ours, Friendship Park. That's to replace and,
I'm sorry, did you skip one? Did you skip 13?
did I skip 13?
No, it's
We
from
went from fish ladder to 14.
No, she said cemeteries.
Cemeteries.
That's cemetery.
so I'm trying to remember the discussion we had on that.
On the
They weren't
cemeteries?
gonna do the cemeteries because they were gonna do the playground, or
Right, but it sounds like they were able to make the numbers work.
numbers work, okay. And so
right.
it's 320 for the playground?
So this is gonna be out of CPC funds or borrowing?
It's borrowing through the CPC.
Oh, it's borrowed.
Oh, really?
Yep, so Articles 9 through 13 will come out of your CPC funds, and Article 14 will come out of CPC funds, but will be a borrowing article.
Does that have to have a special vote? It has to have 2/3, or it has to have,
And most borrowing articles are 2/3.
is it a 2/3 vote?
So
Lanes will
14
be
is a
majority.
borrowing article?
Yes.
CPC borrowing,
Correct.
not the town.
Oh, wait, we're borrowing from the CPC?
Yes.
Okay. Do we get a low interest rate, or?
Well, they'll
Yeah,
get the same
yeah.
interest rate as the town will. So Scott's Golder, as treasurer, still goes out to bid.
Oh.
He bonds the money, and then
Borrow the sum?
Yeah, they were talking about doing short-term, the
Why don't we hold
band,
this one, then and come
short-term
back to it?
financing.
Yeah, because I wish I had brought my book with me, but I thought we said we might not have to borrow this money.
When she was here, it sounded like they had a lot more money in their accounts, but a lot of it is that there's different buckets for the CPC, so we didn't have access to all the money. We only have access, or the playground committee only has access to the open space portion of CPC funds.
So is this a hold or we moving on?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I said let's
Yeah,
hold
hold. He
this.
said
Hold
hold.
this one and let's come back.
Article 15, this is another annual article. This is to transfer $100,000 into the post-employment benefits. It's the pension costs. Article 16, again, another repeat. This is something the police department does with West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and Bridgewater. It's a task force. They have a grant, I believe, that matches it. Article 17, this is for the
So can we come back to 16? Just a question on it.
Article 17 is the Municipal Building Needs Fund. They're looking for $20,000 to be transferred. This is not, we finished CPC. right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is just for the municipal building needs fund.
What's the, what is that?
It's a committee to maintain the buildings if anything happens with the buildings, like a heater goes. I'm not,
Like this building?
Yes,
any of
Any
the,
building that was-
any of the municipal buildings.
Only as needed,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Thanks.
Article 18, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, just on that too, so if we don't use it, that money just rolls, and then we just keep adding to it until it's needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It stays in their fund, yes. Article 18 is the first from the Capital Budget Committee. This is for fire defibrillators. The defibrillators for the fire and EMTs.
This is to replace 5 obsolete AEDs. I think are at end of life or something in terms of this.
We let the town know what the vote was on the capital appropriations?
Nope.
Huh?
No. The only vote that's going to be asked for is the Board of Selectmen and FinCom.
So people assume if it's on here that we voted to appropriate it, or?
Well, they
we're-
don't-
we give them our answer at town meeting. We let them know if we recommend, if we don't recommend, or we defer to
Well,
voters.
I mean,
Capital budget doesn't come into play at the town meeting.
doesn't.
Capital budget is just a vetting source that may or may
Okay.
not be used, but it's a vetting source for you and for the
Gotcha.
Board of Selectmen.
All right.
You are the vetting source, along with the selectmen, for town meeting.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, can I go back to
Nope.
17? So you're saying that we put $20,000 in previous years and it just keeps adding up? Do we know how much is in there now?
Yep, right now they have $94,000 in there. And so they are similar to the Finance Committee. You have a reserve fund, you put in $67,000 a year. Yours is for extraordinary or unforeseen expenses related normally to operating budgets, although it can be used for municipal needs as well. But to try to make sure that there's an additional pool of money, the town has created this municipal building needs fund through the years. And every year you'll add, last year you add 30 or 35,000 to it. So if an AC unit goes, windows, the roof, whatever, then they can go to this committee and they're able to appropriate funds at
So why
that,
didn't they do the library roof or something like that?
because that would have wiped them out.
Yeah, they probably didn't have enough
They had
money.
90,000, it was originally approved at 77,000, keep it
Yeah.
cheaper, but, I think in retrospect, and it's also more or less for emergency repairs.
Yeah.
So again, if it's a minor leak, you can wait 6 months. However, for example, the school department last year, in January, all their
Oh,
heaters
that's
went.
right.
And you can't wait 6 months,
Yeah.
pipes will burst and everything else, so they appropriate money out of that account so they could get a new heater system.
So, I mean, you could, if we had been doing this long enough and there were $500,000, maybe you could have done a roof or something out of it, right,
Sure.
if it had built up. It just isn't that big right now.
Correct. And quite frankly, I'm not so sure we'd let it get that large. There's no
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
but,
There's
I mean,
no
I would
need.
think, maybe 120, 150,000 should be
Yeah,
sufficient.
that's why I was asking the balance, because if you just keep throwing money in there, you don't know.
Right, right.
It could get big. Okay, thank you.
All right, we were up to
19.
Article 19. This is capital budget. This is for, this is for the vehicle, the exhaust system inside the fire station. Article 20 is for the police department. It's for a new cruiser.
We buy new ones, every other year or something?
Every
Or
year.
1 to
every year or
2.
something like
Yeah.
Yeah, he tries to do about one a year. Sometimes he can get two, but he tries to do one a year, and so therefore they have a lifespan of about 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
What is a safety console system?
Article 21, that's for the dispatch system.
So the issue is that we have an antiquated system that still works and communicates with our force in the field, which is good. However, most other municipalities, including Bridgewater and East Bridgewater, their dispatch centers have now gone to.
Digital.
You need me? Okay, all right, I'll be right there. Those towns
We
have
can
now
take a
gone
recess.
to a digital dispatch center, and unfortunately, that means that their dispatch through the radio cannot speak to us, and we can't speak to them because ours is analog.
Got it.
So, from a safety standpoint, we just can't have that.
If you
Yeah.
need to call for help, quickly basically. And
Right.
From one dispatch unit to the other,
then
yes.
we need to call it Bridgewater.
Exactly. So we have to update it so that way we can communicate. Excuse me.
Take a quick break.
Yep, we're going to take a quick recess, please.
Halfway there.
21, 22, this is also another capital budget item. This is for the chipper for the DPW.
So the chipper doesn't work anymore, it's just getting old, it needs repairs?
Larger chipper to handle more,
Bigger branches.
more capacity and bigger branches, right.
Yeah,
The
chip-
other one's pretty short.
If I remember right, the other one is 22 years old. I think it was 1997. They're going to go from a gas powered to a diesel. This one has a lot more power, a lot more ability, and the other one's just getting old and tired.
Yep.
22, 23, this is for the DPW. This is for a pickup truck for the DPW director.
And then I think, we bought a bunch of trucks for the DPW, so do we?
No, we
Those
bought
are the big
utility trucks. He presented this last year, didn't get it.
He drives a
Chris.
pickup truck from the early 90s.
1998 two-wheel drive
Okay.
pickup truck. So this, I would say he's probably got one of the oldest vehicles in town.
It's a good shape.
Not these,
too.
if not the oldest. I want to buy it
Gets
from him.
older.
It's going to be an antique pretty soon. but-
I do keep hearing it's in good shape, though. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
They take care of it.
Yeah.
Article 24. This is for the engineering at the transfer station. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it the transfer station?
And we need engineering for,
They need to reset the house. It's not a house, his office. The
Shed?
shed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shed.
it's a shed. But they have to do the engineering to figure out the best position, and they're talking about making it taller and much safer.
Safer, right.
Safer was a big
Big-
thing.
We're looking into a new building.
Yeah, new building, different place. More facilities inside, get rid of the generator that's there that isn't working.
Article 25 is cold storage. This is also for the DPW. And I didn't even know that existed. I went out there and looked at it with Jerry. It was
So
it
this
was
is what you guys
incredible.
did.
If you
thought
want to
it
go
had
take a
2 or
look at
3
it right
good
now,
years left.
Jan, go ahead. But you might not want to go inside of it. The beams are actually cracked in places.
And
What
there's
is cold
holes.
storage?
There's metal.
It's a building without a door. It's like a
It's a shed.
five-sided building shed with no door, and they
They
keep
put all their
massive
equipment.
trucks
Equipment in there.
Trailers and.
and it's falling down.
falling down.
But
It's-
where it is, where it's located compared to the what's the other thing? The salt.
salt
Is
shed.
it the
They
one?
can't even
Behind
drive.
the salt shed. You should see
That's the
it.
most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
I went there on a windy day, and the roof panel was flapping.
Can you imagine the neighbors?
They're like, come inside. I'm like, no, I'm not going in there. This building's going to fall down.
Sean's worked there since '94. That's the first time I saw or heard about it.
A 5-sided storage with no doors is $105,000.
Yes.
So
You should see the
to
size of it.
take it down and put a new one on. It is.
Is it
Yeah.
metal?
It's like an
Isn't it
airplane
40
hangar, a
by
small
60?
airplane hangar.
So it's the idea of being a cold storage facility is we'd still like to have doors on this one so you can lock them up. But there's not going to be power, there's not going to be electricity, there's not going to be heat. If there's going to be electricity, it's just basic for lights. So that's what keeps the cost down so much, because it's a 40 by 40 building.
Is it 40 by 40 or were they increasing it to 40 by 60?
We had hoped to go to 40 by 60, so that, it just depends on how the bids come in.
Yeah, right.
Because we'll still bid this out.
I didn't know there was so much space back there. Well, I don't know if that's a lot or not a lot. I just had never been there.
So just a question on 24 and 25, will it be all right if we do these in a lump, that if Mary votes on those, or?
Well, she was on the capital budget committee.
Yeah, the reason I have to recuse myself on the other ones is I have a financial benefit.
Okay.
Because Sean's salary is included in those,
Oh, I see,
in
yeah,
those
okay,
budgets.
okay.
These don't affect me.
Okay.
Article 26. This is to, I know this has to do with the East Street and the East Center Street lights, but was it, it was to pay down the debt, that's right, to pay it down.
So
in
as you
2
know,
years.
I've made a commitment that we try not to borrow at any time since I've been here. We really desperately need to do the lights at the East Street, East Center Street intersection. So the next 2 articles pertains to that. And again, I think these are all positives for the town. The bids, we went out, we borrowed, we had to get about $500,000. We received about $60,000 from the state that were gonna be used towards it. So this year here, we can afford to place $225,000 against the debt. So the hope is a year from now, I'd come back and we transfer the difference, so we pay it off in 1 year.
So we borrowed about 500.
So again, it's just, unfortunately, we did have to borrow it, but as we all know from our private finances, is if you carry a lot of debt, it hurts your cash flow going forward.
Yeah.
So we have done everything we can to not borrow, and now what we're doing is looking to not borrow and pay off debt at the same time. So it keeps putting us in a better financial position.
So all these ones that we've talked about, other than the CPC, these are all coming from money that we already have. We're not.
So free cash means we're paying cash for it.
Okay.
All right, Article 27 was also about East Street, East Center Street.
And so what's this?
Which one?
On top of the 500,000?
Yep, so, and we had to do engineering for it. So we went out in October of 2015, we received approval for $130,000 from town meeting for an engineer. We went out to bid, and it looks like our engineering costs are gonna come in just shy of $50,000. So we saved a ton of money from what we were originally quoted. So what we want to do is the selectmen now want to look at what project can we do next. We know Matfield Street and Route 28 is an issue. We know Howard Street and Route 106 is an issue. We're gonna need to do engineering for those. So instead of coming back to the taxpayer looking for more money, what we'll do is this money's already sitting in that bank account. We'll transfer it to a new fund specific for engineering, so that way we can do that type of engineering. And again, it doesn't cost anyone a dollar because the money's already sitting there. So we're just reauthorizing it.
Okay, Article 28 is a repeat from last year. That's to transfer $100,000 to be used for the construction of sidewalks in town. Article,
We haven't built any, we're just
putting money aside. Mhm. Article 29, this was for the netting, is that right? This is just the town's portion for the soccer field?
Yes, yes. So I guess there's a field next to the,
It's at the Howard School, right?
no, it's
This
at
is
the,
this is the new turf field at the high school,
Oh, it is that one.
adjacent to 106.
and they can't play soccer because they keep kicking the soccer balls out onto
Out onto
106.
106, yeah.
Would be shocking to somebody if it came over your car. In fact, it could cause an accident, but, so I guess money's being raised by the West Bridgewater Youth Association and the schools. This whole cost is $34,000 and $14,000 is coming from free cash. This is the town's contribution, part of the town's contribution for a retractable netting.
All right.
Used for any sport.
Article 30 is another one from the Capital Budget Committee. This is a disaster recovery system for the IT.
And we looked at several different alternatives in this, but
We've been talking about this for
Yeah,
years, too, trying to get something in place.
I think aren't they at end of life, Scott, with what they have now?
They're at end of life. Yep.
So what does this mean, disaster recovery? It's like a backup or something?
3-year.
You're
Yeah.
putting it in the cloud?
Yeah, if something
3-year
happens.
purchase.
It's a purchase. We're doing an outright purchase as opposed to a lease.
That way we
It's
own
good
the
for 3
equipment.
years.
But I mean,
And
it's
then
just,
we can get a warranty on top after that, they said.
it's just
Yeah.
taking the data and backing it up somewhere
It's all the
for,
hardware, so everything that you're using between the town, the school, and fire, it's all
Lease, yeah.
covered. So
Okay.
anything that you're logging into any of the servers, any of the backup, it's all included. It's their infrastructure.
All right, Article 31. This is for the school department. This is requested by the school committee. They need $150,000 to be transferred to cover their special education costs for the current fiscal year.
so this is the unexpected costs they incurred that they talked about.
For
The new,
past
the new
year.
person to town.
For the current year. This
Current
is
year.
for,
Just one person.
Yeah, I think it's a new person
Yeah, I
to town
think it-
that we weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Article 32.
Didn't they take a cut? Didn't they cut their budget?
I know they froze a lot of things.
They
In
did
spending.
cut,
David
well, they,
asked
not
them
only
to
they cut it
reduce it.
36,000, they also kicked in a little bit to this turf, this retractable awning, but that's different from the $150,000 shortfall I mean, you could probably, whatever, sum it up any way you want, but it still comes up to $150,000 shortfall in their special education funding.
All right, Article 32 is to set up a new stabilization fund. It would be used specifically for special education costs. So this article is to just set it up. It's not to transfer any money into it yet.
Hold.
Article 33.
Do you have a question, Mo?
I thought that discussion was a stabilization fund, not specifically for special ed, but unforeseen expenses too.
I held it, we can go back.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, said it very quietly.
Replay's coming on.
So, no, I agree.
I'm teasing.
No, that's fine.
Article 33 is to take money, this was because the roof was less than expected, so they're transferring money out of this article into another article. So 33, 34, and 35 are all related to each other.
Right, so I want to explain, because I also didn't hear what I said to both Mary and Jerry earlier, because I'm going to send an email and apologize to the Capital Budget Committee. So let me take all three at the same time. Last year, the school roof was leaking. We went to town meeting. We received $77,500 in funds. We went out to bid. That was the quote that we received. We went out to bid, got multiple bids. The job came in at $49,000. So we saved a ton of money, which is excellent. What the library wanted to do at that point was to take the remaining proceeds, and they want to be able to put security cameras inside the building and outside the building. And they also need to upgrade some of their network, their electronic networking inside, and their cables inside as well. So we thought that they could just use that money. That typically would normally go before the Capital Budget Committee. But because we were going to be using the money from that same fund, it didn't, because they already had the money. After reviewing it with legal counsel and going through it, it determined that we can't just do it that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to send an email out so everybody at Capital Budget knows why it wasn't there. It just wasn't understood at that point. So what we want to do, because again, consistent with what I said earlier about wanting to pay off debt, Article 33 was always envisioned that we were going to pay off that debt within 1 year, so we would not incur additional interest charges. So because we only had to we borrowed the $77,000, we only had to spend $49,000 on the job, we're going to take our free cash and we're going to pay that off. The $28,575 is sitting in our bank account almost like you took a cash advance out on your credit card. So according to legal counsel, I need authorization from town meeting to send it back to the bank to pay off that note.
To pay off the note on
Of
the
77.
leaky roof?
Of the
Correct.
roof.
So even though it only cost us $49, we had borrowed the $77, so we want to pay it off in its entirety. And originally we thought we were going to just take that $28,000 and put it towards these other two. We can't.
Yeah.
So that's why Article 33, you've never seen one written like this before, because there's leftover monies. So it says $49,000 comes from free cash, $28,005 and change comes from
Yeah, it doesn't say which year, though. It says from Article 27.
Yes, right.
of the annual town meeting of June 4th, 2018. It's in
Oh,
the-
I see. It's in
It's in
the
the motion.
article.
Yep, it's in the article. So.
Oh, yeah. There it is, yeah.
So we will take the leftover proceeds, we'll pay it off, and then Article 34 and 35, because it's all the same money. 49 plus 20 would have come up to 69,000. It's all the same money from free cash. It's just the way we now have to disclose it from a legal standpoint.
So you could, if you took out 34 and 35, you could just pay off the roof and put the 28 back into your free cash.
That is correct.
And so what we're saying is, we're going to do that, but then the library wants these other two things.
That is correct.
So we're sort of using that money for these, but not really.
Yeah, we are. But the reality is twofold. One is, we thought for $77,000 we're going to get a roof.
Yeah.
Now for $69,000 we're going to get a roof, we're going to get security cameras, and we're also going to get new networking.
Right.
So that's what so it's still a better
Yeah,
deal than we
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
It's just the way we have to disclose it. If I could hit rewind with what I know now, then Articles 34 and 35 would have went before the Capital Budget Committee, so that way they would have reviewed it as well. Obviously, I've reviewed it, the selectmen have reviewed it, our IT person has reviewed it, we all agree with it, but we should have put it through capital budget, we just didn't know it at the time.
Why wouldn't Article 35 be part of Article 30 in that upgrade that we're doing for the entire network infrastructure?
Because the library has a little bit of a different system. Their system has to be more open than the rest of the system is.
Oh, for other folks to come in, have it
Exactly.
open,
So
so
they
people have Wi-Fi access, da-da-da.
exactly. So this system is a little bit different than ours.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Didn't the library have a capital budget article several years ago about moving network cabling and what
We
have
did,
you?
we turned it
Yeah,
down.
Turn it
Yeah,
down.
we
yes.
did not do it at that time. Because quite frankly, it was one that we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why when this leftover money was available,
Yeah.
Alan said, oh, this is great, now I can get it done, and it doesn't cost me any additional money from what's already been approved to spend on the library.
It's a rat's nest.
Yeah, but because we, the town, said you could spend the 77 on the roof, we didn't really say you could buy the cables and stuff, so
That's
it
correct,
has to
right.
be approved.
Correct. So that's why we have to do it this way.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, now we don't need a hold on it.
All right, Article 36. This is to transfer money into the town stabilization fund, to transfer $220,000 from free cash.
And that fund is for,
That's our savings account, or the rainy day fund.
and
Or
how much is in there?
if this is going to bring it just over 3 million, I believe.
It is.
And you should probably
Come a
point
long
out
way,
that
isn't it?
It really has.
doesn't the state recommend that the town have 15% of its budget?
No, the Department of Revenue has stated that it would like to see municipalities be at 10% of its budget. So right now, you figure an operating budget of 35 million, the goal would be to get to 3.5 million. But again, I got here, we had 11 grand,
Yeah, I know.
you know, in
It was
Well,
bad.
good. So
6
bring us-
years, we've
bring
gone
us
to 3
close.
million. Correct. Exactly, we're about 8%.
Okay, Article 37 is for the water department. This is to help to continue the permitting of a new water source. They're going to pay for it with $80,000 from water surplus,
So didn't we just vote on
stuff for the
this
water
stuff?
department.
Yeah, at the
I know, at the
special town
special
meeting?
town meeting.
Like, we just gave them, like, I forget how much, a lot. It was like $500,000 plus something else, right?
Correct. You had two articles there. One was a transfer of free cash for $115,000 to go
Oh,
against
yeah.
their budget.
Yep, because of the leak, yep.
And then the other one was for, I think it was 500,000.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Which was a borrowing article, and that was for, to permit a new well.
Right.
And so what's the difference between that and these?
I think, again, I would,
Well,
This was
this
to
one's not
locate a
budget.
new source, wasn't it?
well, I think that, I mean, again, I don't know it the way they know it. My guess is Article 37 is to continue permitting. So my guess is that the $80,000 is going to go towards permitting, which is probably design engineer, permitting fees, that type of stuff. And the $500,000 is probably to actually help them build the well. That's my guess.
So the $500,000, what'd they do with the other $500,000 we just gave them, like last month?
Well,
They're adding
they
another
haven't spent-
600?
They haven't spent it yet. And then 620,000 on Article 38 looks like that is infrastructure improvements on an existing tank.
Why didn't they just ask for the 80,000 back in special?
Yikes.
Yeah, these two are tough, I think.
Should we put holds on
Hold
Yeah,
on.
let's talk about it.
both of them?
See if the town-
Okay. Article 39 and 40, we don't have numbers on yet, but this is to authorize them to set up a pilot again, a pilot agreement. That was the payment in lieu of taxes. That was for the solar farm, solar field that was put on top of a building. These aren't for a building specifically, right? It's
To
just
my
a,
knowledge, neither one of them are. Profetti is existing right now, and that's up off of East Center Street, and I'm sorry, it's probably South Main Street. And Article 40, they're not on the ground yet. The reason I was called out of the office is because the assessors have been negotiating with both of them. It looks like the Profetti one is going to go forward. The Clean Energy one, they have not reached an agreement yet. So obviously, as a committee, you can do whatever you would like to do, but we don't have numbers. So my recommendation is that a lot of times in these cases, you'll just put refer to voters and then allow the Board of Assessors at that time to make their case.
Can we vote that right now? Does anyone want to make a motion for Article 39?
I'll make a motion that we refer to voters,
39 and 40 or just 39?
both.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
I'll second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Those are
Okay.
referred to. And Article 41, this has to do with the special police officer. David, you know this one much better. This
Sure.
is a big one.
Special police officer.
Yep, so when you see home rule petition, what that means is that we're going to petition the legislature to make a special act or special legislation specific to the town of West Bridgewater. So right now, state law is that police officers cannot serve past the age of 65. Makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. Special police officers are usually retired police officers, stay on, and they will do special duty or, on-call duty, details, that type of stuff. Most municipalities do not allow specials to stay on past 70. Again, kind of makes sense. In a couple of cases recently, a few towns have been sued alleging an age discrimination case, and those police officers have won. And so, as a result, what we are being advised by multiple sources is that if we want to continue having our local policy of not to exceed the age of 70, is that we should get special legislation for this. And therefore, if you get sued, you're following the law. So this here, town meeting hopefully approves it. It would then go to our state delegation, Rep. Dubois and Senator Timilty, and then they would bring it to their respective chambers. They get approved at their respective chambers. The governor signs it, and now there's special legislation specific to the town of West Bridgewater that states that age 70 is the cutoff, and therefore somebody wouldn't be able to bring an age discrimination lawsuit against us.
So it's sad, I've seen, and I think we've all seen them, cops out on details that are probably not anywhere close to 65, that probably couldn't run 5 steps. And then you get somebody who's 65 who could be in fabulous shape, who could make somebody like that run circles around them. And, it's just,
So there's no dollar amount that's really
No.
with this. So can we just
yeah,
refer
this
to
is
voters?
just, yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
Would you like to make a motion?
Make that motion to refer to voters.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, refer to voters for Article 41. Any opposed? So moved. All right, Article 42, this is to rescind the fee schedule for the sealer of weights and measures. And this is so the Board of Selectmen can adjust the fees whenever necessary, instead of having to have the whole town come together for a meeting.
Okay.
So, say that again, so this will rescind the current fees and allow the selectmen to set them ad hoc whenever they want?
Yes.
Yes. Otherwise, we
Just
have to
on
go to
their
a
own?
special, otherwise we have to have a special town meeting for
So-
every time they want to change the fees.
All right, so the history behind, this Board of Selectmen sets fees for everything else. You want a building permit fee? We set it. You want to get a transfer station sticker fee? We set it. We set fees for everything. You want to
Okay.
get a liquor license?
Except
We set
Board of
it.
Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
They set fees for everything.
Okay.
The only thing they don't set under their jurisdiction
Is
is
this.
this.
Yeah.
And so we have to by law have a sailor and weight person. He did an analysis, 130 towns, 1/3 of the state. Pretty hefty analysis provided. We have not updated our fees since 2007. So at the time when I looked at it, and again, the fees aren't going to go from $100 to $1,000. They're going to go from 100 to like 115, right? Just to be market. So the Board of Selectmen were ready to vote to increase it, and then I came across, I didn't realize the bylaw was here, to be honest with you. I came across the bylaw, and I said, hold on. So I spoke to legal counsel, and they said, yeah, they said, because you have a bylaw in place, that you have to go to town meeting. So I asked the town clerk to do some homework on it for me, and we've gone to town meeting a couple of times since the inception of this. The last time was in 2007. But it seems pretty cumbersome that every time you want to change your fee structure, first of all, you'd have to go to town meeting to change it. Then second, and this is not being disrespectful to anyone, but how would anybody at town meeting know whether or not the gasoline or diesel fuel for less than a half an inch to a 1 inch should be $20 or $23?
Yeah.
How would someone know that? We're putting them in a bad position.
Yeah.
So instead, we'll do the analysis. The selectmen at an open meeting still have to be posted on the agenda. It's not like it's done secretly. But it's like everything else. Now, as they see fit, they'll be able to adjust the fees and make sure that it's according to market value.
So is this one, because I guess there's a financial impact, we should put on this?
I would say so.
Article 43, we currently have a cigar wrapper bylaw where they, in town where you, I remember being pregnant with my daughter when this came up. Yeah, we don't allow cigar wrappers to be sold or
You
sold.
mean
with-
cigars wrapped in paper, or?
I forget. What
The
was it?
papers.
It was just.
You
the
can't
paper.
buy papers to, you
Papers.
can't buy your own
Oh.
papers in the town of West Bridgewater.
Oh,
But it was specifically the cigar wrappers. It was so they couldn't roll it. Can't
Yeah.
purchase those kind of papers. And this is to rescind that rule.
Which would allow them to sell them.
Yeah,
And the police were okay with it.
yeah.
They were?
Yeah, I'm on the bylaws study committee, and we reviewed this.
That's interesting.
Okay.
That you reviewed it, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a refer to voters.
Yep. Should we refer to voters?
Just, I mean, I'm asking, it does have,
There's nothing in it for us, right? There's no tax.
no.
I mean, the only way, you could make the argument that someone might sell an extra $72 worth of wrappers at their business this year, and therefore they'll be paying a little bit more tax on
There
it,
you go.
which some of the revenue does go to the town of West Bridgewater. But that's the only argument I can make.
Is there Sid tax on the,
So-
that's something different, never mind.
Does
I'll
anyone
make
want
a
to make a
motion, we
motion?
refer that to voters.
All right.
I'll second, yeah.
First and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Refer to voters. Okay, Article 44. Oh, we also reviewed this, did we? No, this is the zoning bylaw. Is this the measurement from facility?
No.
That's not
This is very important, this article. From a conservation perspective, it will make deciding whether we should allow, any incursion into the 50 or not, much easier to decide. Now builders will come in and they'll play with the configuration of the house, and it's abutting here, and it's bumping there, and they want relief here. This way, you just take the 100, lay it in there. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
All lots being subdivided shall be designed geometrically to show 100-foot by 100-foot square beginning at
Is
the
that your
minimum.
understanding, Dave? Pretty much.
It is. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of energy about this at town meeting. The reason being is because what Mo said is entirely accurate. So right now, in theory, you take a parcel of property, you take 100 feet by 100 feet, and you hit a border, you hit some wetland. So what they do is they jog it a little bit,
Yeah.
and they try to move it, right?
Right.
And then it becomes a little contentious at the Conservation Commission with the developer as you attempt to try to figure it out. So in order to take some of that out, make it cut and dry, the Conservation Commission has said is that if you draw your 100 feet, and if it encroaches on the 50-foot buffer to wetlands, you can't build on it. Simple, pretty cut and dry. The problem with that, from some people's standpoint, and we heard a presentation about this at the selectmen's level, is that the state law is that you cannot build on wetland. We have a local rule which adds 50 feet to it. So in essence, what you're saying is if you can't build within 50 feet of the wetland here, then you have to have 100 feet. You're actually 150 feet from the wetland. And in a town that's wet, you're gonna really restrict the potential for development.
Yeah.
Does this include like sheds?
Yep.
Things like that? 'Cause
Absolutely.
when I lived in Raynham, we had to put a shed in the middle of our yard because of that. And we had to appeal to the town to be able to actually move it in a normal location.
Yeah, so you appealed for a variance to a hardship. So that's exactly what, so the issue is that if you believe that this should pass, then what you're saying is that we want to make sure that that 50-foot is never encroached upon. Now, there are some variance opportunities. And if you don't believe in it, the argument is, look, we're a wet town, you're going to seriously restrict it. And for example, if you own a couple of acres in town, and you expected one day when you retire, you're gonna sell it off,
right.
right? Now all of a sudden, this might seriously dampen your ability to do that.
Yeah.
So there are some financial implications on it, directly and indirectly. I think that there's gonna be a lot of energy about this one at town meeting, because I think that there are strong opinions on both sides. I don't think anyone is technically right or wrong, it's just a matter of how you feel. So, but this is, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of energy about this one at town meeting.
That's a toughie.
This doesn't affect it in most septic systems, so, I mean, there's a lot of variances given to septic systems because you gotta put them in,
Right.
so. Well, we'll see how it goes. Just makes it easier than battling over, say the house gets up against a wetland like that, you know, and they've got
Gotta get variance for that.
corner, 2 feet between the wetland and the house, and you know they're going to incur into the wetland. They just will do it. So we say, all right, we're gonna order them, put a chain link fence up there to protect the wetlands.
So understanding that, it sounds like it's much more of a conservation issue than it is a finance issue. So
Oh, definitely.
But it
refer-
will
I kinda
impact
say
towns.
Oh,
let's
yeah.
refer to
Impact-
voters.
Yeah.
It could
future
impact.
Even though
revenue.
it does have some type of impact.
Yeah, it
it's
does
Well, it
just,
will.
I think
impact.
it's-
Because you might look in the future, you have a couple of acres that can't be developed,
Right.
Yeah.
and therefore you're gonna get undeveloped taxes of 3,600 versus developed taxes of, say, 20 grand,
Yeah.
right? So that's where the real impact will be
Yeah.
felt. You know, for example, even in your case on a shed, as a resident, that was probably a little bit of a pain in the butt to go through, right?
Yes.
But the second thing is that even if it was a $10,000 shed that you put on, it probably equated out to an additional tax revenue of $50.
That's
So,
always the struggle.
so that $50 is a real impact. But imagine if you didn't want to put a shed there, that this was a commercial piece of property, and you wanted to put a shopping mall there worth $15 million. So
Yeah.
that's real money
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point. So there's no doubt that this will have some type of a financial impact.
There'll still be variances given out.
Yeah, except that then, you know,
It's a bigger fight.
Tougher.
But it's also a lot of administrative, if everybody has to go for a variance now because there's so much wet property in this town, you know, I mean, that's gonna add a lot of
Right.
applications
Quick
for.
We'll be
contentious.
back in
Right?
going, we'll be going, why is your secretary working so much?
Yeah.
I guess you can't charge for
Oh.
So are we
All
placing
right.
a hold on this? Does anyone have a motion?
it.
I put a motion on refer to voters.
All
but I
right,
don't
is
know.
there a second?
Really? You want to refer to voters?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there a
I mean,
second?
And
Second.
All right.
personally good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Me.
So one, two to, how many of us are there? Two to
42.
So that was,
Refer 42. Okay.
sorry, I keep track of who says no. So in town meeting, when they ask,
Yeah.
why'd you say no? I know exactly who. All right, Article, was that Article four? So Article 45.
Oh, required parking.
This
How
is
did
another
Nico's-
zoning bylaw.
If
every
Nico's has
2.5
4
seats.
spots for every seat in that restaurant, that is absolutely impossible.
Who what?
Nico's. You ever been to the Nico's
Go there
parking
all
lot?
the time.
It's there
One of my
last
favorite
night.
places.
They have like one spot for every.
No, they don't. That's a tiny parking spot.
It is. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
This
I'm
is saying that the
Like,
current.
I thought you said there was 4 parking spots for every seat. I'm like,
I know
no
that
way.
that's the bylaw. One spot for every.
No.
One
So it's,
space for every.
it's one parking space for every 4 seats in it. So if it seats 100, you need 25
Okay.
parking spots.
And this cuts it down to one
To 2.5.
parking space for every 2.5 seats. Ooh, that's
How
another.
did this come?
It's another
toughie.
zoning bylaw.
So this came about because there is a business in town that currently meets our 1 to 4 ratio, but has severely encroached on all the other parking in that facility. And so the planning board wants to make sure that this doesn't get repeated in the future.
Okay.
So any existing business, they're grandfathered in,
Mm-hmm.
but this would be for future businesses.
All right.
So this feels like a refer to voter, this isn't like a finance thing, right?
Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I mean, it has implications for future business, but I'm not going to fight that one out.
I'll make the motion.
To refer?
Yes.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Article 46.
Goodness
Another zoning bylaw. This defines the word facility. And that's related to Article 47. Do you want to talk about that, Dave?
Sure. So right now, we have a medical marijuana bylaw in town that zones for medical marijuana. It's not recreational marijuana that's been banned in the town. So the new state regulation, our current bylaw says that you cannot build a facility within 500 feet from the edge of your property to the 500 feet of whatever other property it is being set back from. So for example, you can't have 500 feet to a church or to a residential area. The state regulation is not 500 feet from the edge of the property to the edge of the property, but from the point of the facility to the point of the other facility. And that seemingly makes sense because, for example, let's assume that you have a facility here, but it sits on 10 acres. The acreage lands here. According to our bylaw, it is now 500 feet from this point to that other point. But it could be more than 500 feet from this point to the facility already. So as a result, we're looking to become more consistent with what the new state regulations are. So as a result, they're looking to change it from the property line on premise to point of facility. Now, we do not define the word facility in our bylaw. So as a result, we are now going to define what the word facility means. So when the planning board sent it over to me, they sent it over to me as one bylaw change, making multiple amendment changes to the bylaw. It is now in legal counsel's hand. I'll work with him. We may turn this into one article. We may turn this into two articles. Right now, I just wrote it as two. So that way, from a transparency standpoint, you see that there are two amendments being proposed to the bylaw.
Does this affect any existing?
We do not have an existing,
Have one? I'm sorry, I
Yep.
don't know that.
it's okay. We do not,
That place on Scotland, what is that, in East
Is
Bridgewater?
that in
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater,
That's what
excuse me.
I wasn't
No, this is
sure.
for a new
Yeah,
one.
if that
And
was
the Bridgewater.
Bridgewater. I
Right.
wasn't
So the one that is up off of Scotland Street, which is on Elm Street, is in Bridgewater. There is one currently being permitted or attempted to be permitted on Old Maple Street Extension. So if you go down Plymouth, I'm sorry, Plymouth, if you go down Pleasant near Barrett's, it comes to an end where there's state property.
Oh.
You take a left and you would run straight into Route 24 because the
Yeah.
highway cut off
Yeah.
Maple Street. On the left-hand side,
Yeah.
there is Plassey Masonry. You see it from the highway. And there's there's open space there or an open facility. And so they want to be zoned there. So the issue is that they're 500 feet. They're within 500 feet of a residential area. Their residential area is Scotland Street on the other side of Route 24.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
So Route 24 provides a pretty good
Yeah.
buffer.
Yeah.
You can't walk it, right? And that was the spirit of creating the buffer. So they have us in court right now because the Zoning Board of Appeals, following the bylaw, said no. They were looking for a variance, and they have us in court. The concern that we have is that because of the new regulation from the state, is that they have a legitimate legal argument to say that our bylaw is inconsistent with state regulations. Now, it doesn't have to be consistent. We can do our own. But obviously, our case is weakened at that point when it's a highway
Yeah,
and it's inconsistent.
right.
So rather than continue to incur legal expenses, the planning board has said, let's just make sure it's consistent with state regulations. So by,
Yeah, but I mean, that's sort of like fitting it to this specific example, and could it be used in other cases where it might not have a Route 24 buffer that
Right, what are-
there's no
what
doubt.
else is it gonna
might
affect?
be
But
the
it-
school, or it might
But
be.
still, look at David's
Still
example.
would
If you're
be.
on 10 acres, the 500 feet doesn't start till the tip of the acre, when the building could be over here, way over here in this little corner on the
Yeah.
other side.
Right.
So the assumption is, again, I'm making an assumption, but the Cannabis Coalition Commission, which is mostly attorneys that are on there, and this is not the first state to have legalized marijuana, I am sure have spent countless hours and lots of money coming up with these regulations because it's taken them a couple of years. And so my guess is if this is the regulation they came up with, that it's been properly vetted. So if it's been properly vetted, regardless of whether or not we have a local facility looking to be permitted, it's just in our best interest to make sure that we're consistent so we can better survive a future lawsuit.
All right.
Okay, so this would bring us in line with the current law.
That's per regulation, yes.
Facility
Still might be
as
referred to
building
voters,
itself,
but-
I
not
still
the
feel like
edge
it
of the
is.
property.
Well, we're defining facility, but the edge of the property, the second one, Article 47, that is the language specific to the regulation, state regulation.
Okay.
It still feels like a refer to voters. I mean, I don't,
Well, I'm ready to take a stand.
you ready to take a stand?
Take a stand. I'll make a motion that we vote in favor of it, but I'd have to be seconded and,
Well, I mean, I'd second it.
To approve it? Is that
To
what you're?
approve it.
You're
To recommend it.
recommending?
Recommend.
Oh, 46 and 47?
yes, 46 and 47.
So, but what's
Why are
the
we voting for
finan-
this one
Yeah,
separately?
what's the financial,
Avoid future lawsuits, to be in line with the state.
So would
Right
we
here, you
just,
just said we're already in court, which is ridiculous.
so should we put a hold on these two?
Sure.
Article 48. Oh, this is to accept Pearl Road.
Hold.
All right, let's do the whole.
Wow, how come you don't
Okay.
like Pearl Road?
Not bad. Not great, but not bad.
I like you
All
more
right.
and more, Scott.
Looks like 14 is the first one.
Yeah, I think it was. Yes. Oh, this was for the playground.
yeah, so I just wanted to understand kind of what happened to all the money that we talked about. And we need to borrow the whole 320, that what they didn't have enough money, but they're gonna, because I thought when we said Article 13, they found the money for the cemetery, but then we have to borrow the 320 for the park, so I just wanted to understand what,
This is the way-
grid she gave us and how that worked.
I think I put this on hold and I didn't realize it was for the park. I mean, you can answer her question, but I originally put it on because I wasn't sure what we're getting after the 320, because I know they have a substantial amount of money within their reach. But now that I understand that, I'm good with my hold.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm
Same
trying to
as
best.
buckets.
There were different buckets of income. I know when she was here, she
Yeah.
didn't know the totals exactly, and she just knew.
Okay.
We had a spreadsheet that she gave us, and it had
Yeah.
totals on the bottom.
Yeah.
But it wasn't reduced for, I know, the other projects they were going to approve this year from these
Okay.
other funds.
Okay.
So she didn't give, the figures she gave us were a combination of the different buckets. It wasn't just the bucket that we could go after.
Okay, all right. So the 320, is that a price we already got? We know it's gonna cost that much, or is that just? an
We're having a
estimate?
public hearing on it, actually, on, is it May 22nd?
I think it's May 22nd.
At the library.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, you asked, oh, we,
Post it again on the hub. We did that, but
yeah, we got bids from several companies to kind of figure out what it would cost to
Yeah.
replace, what sort of upgrades are necessary. There's also been an audit done on the playground equipment.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm good then, thank you.
Okay, the next hold was Article 16.
Right, for the web task force.
Yeah, who did that one?
That was Jan.
Jan.
It was?
I know this is a grant, so they have to,
Oh, that's what I
matches
wanted
it.
to understand. So this task force, this is where we participate in those
Yes.
town task force?
States, yeah.
And then I didn't understand what the grant part was. We get,
it's a matching grant. So if we give them, or they can get up to 10,000 if we match it.
I actually think that we received more from the state now because the money's come, I believe that part of the money is coming from the 911 fund.
Oh, okay.
Basically, this is more for drug enforcement. And so between West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and Bridgewater is that whenever we go on drug enforcement in tandem, is that we're able to recoup some of the expense, the DA recoups some of the expense. For example, you uncover a car that's worth $20,000 and it
Yeah.
sells off at auction. And some of the money gets reappropriated back to us through that grant. Anyway, the $10,000, each town appropriates a certain amount. so that way we can go out and do whatever it is we have to do through a tandem drug force, task force.
So they don't put that in their budget? This is like to pay people for this extra work or something?
Yeah, because this is not, this question was posed from the selectmen that maybe we put it in our budget going forward. However, this is not necessarily the town of West Bridgewater specific. So for example, because they're part of a task force, they could be called out on a Saturday night because there's a drug raid in Bridgewater. Our operating budget would normally take care of something happening in West Bridgewater.
Oh, I see.
So that's why it sounds like it makes more sense to keep it as such.
Okay.
Because it's really not part of our operating budget.
Okay.
Even though it is our police officers that do it. The same way a Bridgewater police officer will be aiding us in a drug raid
Right.
on the same Saturday night if we know that some issue is going on.
Okay.
And they've done some really good things over the years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I just wanted to understand why it wasn't part of the regular budget, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Moving on to Article 32. Oh, this is the, is it 31?
Stabilization.
Stabilization.
Yeah, I think my question was, because they used an example at their meeting, budget meeting, of teacher goes out on disability, so they bring in a sub, but after a short period of time, you need a full-time teacher in there, that the sub pay, isn't appropriate anymore, but they don't have the money, because they're paying the teacher that's out, plus they have to hire a new teacher, and I
Maternity
guess the
leave.
thinking was to use some money from a stabilization fund for that.
But this is
Something-
specifically
I
for
know,
special
it's-
education.
right.
Yeah, this-
Something happened along the way to
And it's
just
saying-
narrow it to that, I
And
guess.
it's saying 2% of the school budget, which is what, at 13 million right now? That's a lot of money.
Well, it says it shall not exceed it, but it doesn't really say how this would be funded. Or maybe I'm not reading enough.
Nope, you're entirely correct. So what they're looking to do is to follow a new general law that's just came into fruition over the last 2 years, 2016, is that it would allow the schools to create a separate stabilization of fund. In my understanding of reading the law, is that in the future, so say next year, is that we decide we want to put $50,000 into it, the way any of these other articles exist, is that the town meeting would vote $50,000, it would go into the account. And money could continue to be appropriated into that account up to the point that it reached 2%, which under a $13 million budget is about $260,000. So if you want to access the money during the school year, then the superintendent needs to go to the school committee. The school committee has to vote yes, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen have to vote yes. Then they can access the money.
And it's supposed to be used only for special education.
That is correct.
If it exceeds their budget.
Or out of
I assume.
special education, for unanticipated or unbudgeted costs of special education, out of district tuition or transportation.
So ultimately to
Those three
select
items.
what we had to
So it
do
doesn't
this
involve
year
finance
for that.
At all.
That is correct.
Article
person.
31.
So that doesn't involve the finance committee at all. There's no financial review by us. Is there a need
Going
to?
forward, it would be, because it would be just what we're doing with our
Right, because
our
we're
funding
appropriating town.
and the budget
So we'd still have to do the same.
we would have to say whether or not we
It's
want to
the
put
same.
money
Right.
into it on
Right.
an annual basis. whether
Right,
it's
I'm
a
talking
two-
about when they want to take the money out.
Right, he just was explaining what they have to go through.
Right.
So two things, because I want to make sure that there's full disclosure. Yes, Scott is absolutely right, that if we're going to go to town meeting, it's going to be a warrant article. You would review it, make a recommendation, town meeting would vote on it with the money going in. With the money coming out, finance committee would not have any review powers at that point. What is unclear, and the school superintendent and I met on this last week, she is interpreting the law to state that if she has a $13 million budget and she spends $12,900,000, so there's $100,000 left, right now that money falls to free cash, not like every other budget. She is interpreting, or she believes that other school districts have it, where that $100,000 could automatically be placed into this account versus having to go to town meeting to get the funds. I don't read the statute that way. I read the statute that it has to only be done through an appropriation at town meeting. So again, we're going to get something from legal counsel on it. The reality is this, is that another school district may very well be doing it that way, and you could do anything you want until it's challenged, right? And The law's not even 2 years old at this point. My guess is there's no case law on it. Like most legislation, it's written, they don't really totally understand all the nuances of it, and then at a later date, something like this happens. So we will get a legal definition, but my reading is that it would have to always be appropriate to the town meeting process. I can tell you the superintendent believes that is probably the appropriate way to do it, but she does think that the law may allow it to be transferred immediately in as well. So we're going to get a legal analysis done
So
on
when's the last time she had money left over that she would be able to transfer into this fund anyways?
Yeah.
it. It's been a few years.
Yeah. So,
I
Any
just don't
reason-
understand why the schools, why would the school be different from any other department in the town? I don't know, am I missing something?
I guess
No,
because
okay.
special education is completely outside their control.
It is, but still, their budget isn't any different from any other budget in town, so why should they take any unused funds and be able to put them in a different fund? I don't agree with
We're
that.
gonna
I
pay
agree
one
with
way or
this,
the other,
but
though.
I don't
So-
agree with that.
I hear you there, Jerry, where I don't think they'd be able to take their money and just appropriate it, but I look at this as kind of an HSA, kind of a health savings account, if you will, in case the money goes up higher, so we don't have to just borrow. It would be up to us maybe next year to say, hey, do we want to put 10,000 in it? Do we want to put 20,000? You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I see it there. Keep me honest, David. I don't think we're just going to be, oh, gee, we're going to overdo their budget and throw in $150,000 for next year. Because to Janice's point, when's the last time they had money left over?
yeah.
So the question is,
I don't know.
should we have this here, or the place that has almost 2/3 of our money? Should that be out there? I guess that's the question for the group.
Well, I mean, this is actually a perfect example because Article 31 says we got our budget approved last year and then we had this unexpected, special ed need. And now
Right.
we're coming to
That's
the
exactly.
town and we're asking you to fund it out of free cash.
Right.
And so an argument could be made that why don't we just continue to do it that way, right? I think when I remember, and I don't like to trust my memory, but what I thought I remember Patty saying was they might have the ability to set up this sort of savings account so that if this 150,000 thing could happen in the future, they'd have some money and they wouldn't have to necessarily go to the
This
You know
is
what,
the
I'm
purpose.
That's
in
exactly
favor of the stabilization fund, but I'm also in favor of transparency, and I don't
Yeah.
think that any department should be allowed to take money and put it into any fund that they want to. I'm in favor of transparency. I understand that they have a $150,000 shortfall, but I still think I'm in favor of the stabilization fund, but what I'm not in favor of them doing is being able to take any money they didn't spend and put it into the account on their own, because that's not what the other departments do.
And it doesn't seem like there's any clear guidance on it, right? It doesn't seem like there's clear guidance on exactly how that would work, right?
At this point, no. And again, my reading of the law, and again, the superintendent's not against it.
Yeah.
My reading of the law is that the money would have to be appropriated through the town meeting process into the account. She believes there are other districts that have allowed the money, if there's money left over, to be transferred directly in.
Without going through town.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I agree with you. I mean, it's a difficult slope around when they're setting their budget, if they're thinking about funding a stabilization. Like, you don't want to
Could be
have,
built
you
in.
want it to be
Yeah.
transparent,
It
right?
should be transparent.
Yeah,
All the other departments try to be,
right.
except for the water department, which is self-funding, which is why we don't know as much, because it's different.
So it feels like this is something that we should either make a recommendation on one way or
Yeah.
the other, right?
Probably.
Yes, we should.
Would anyone like to make a motion either way?
Well, I'll make a motion in favor of Article 32. I'll create the fund, but I won't just fund it. I'll create the fund, but they have to.
Yeah, but I don't know that we get to say that, right?
All right, that's not part of this question.
Well, next year.
It is.
It is, because they're not
This
gonna
is
be
just
able to put
setting up
money
the
in.
fund. This has nothing to do with how it's allocated.
Yeah, but if we're setting up the fund and the rule turns out to be that she could transfer money from her budget, then that would be out of our control, right?
Right.
Do I understand that right?
Why?
If that's the rule?
But if that is the rule, and we set the fund up and they did something with their money to help them further themselves for a rainy day, what's the real bad part of that?
The transparency.
But
Transparency.
again, you would know it. They would tell us what they've done. It would be on
How
their
would we
books.
know that?
Ooh,
Or do you
don't
think
get me
it's-
started.
Okay.
How,
Let
would
me
we
ex-
know that? If they let's just say this
Wouldn't it
year
be
they
in
had a
their
good year.
Wouldn't
and
it be
they-
in their budget in the year? They can't just carry the money.
So you,
Bottom line,
They also have the school choice fund.
Yeah.
They move money back and forth with that one.
So what I'm reading 32, keep me honest, is this is just trying to set up kind
This
of
is just a setup.
just the setup that they have something where they could put money. Kind of excluding right now, but I mean, I hear what you're saying. You want to make sure you know what's going in there, but this here to me feels we're setting up a
Right. Yeah, I
place
agree.
to put money in case they
Only.
need it for now.
but no funding.
Right,
Right.
no funding.
So I think that's a good thing as a finance committee.
How we do it, though.
But I mean, again, I equate it to the municipal buildings, right? We put 20,000 in it. We may not need it, but if we do, it's there, and I think that's what they're trying to do here. So the next time someone moves in, we don't have to take $150,000 from free cash to cover it for them after their budget's already been created. So that's my. So you said yes.
I don't have a problem setting up the fund. What I do have a problem with, like I said, is that any extra money in any budget should go back to the town. And I don't think any department is above any other department in town in terms of having the ability to keep their money. I don't think that's in the spirit of the budget or what the taxpayers would hope that would be done with their money, and even if it is the schools.
Yep.
You know, you can't use the argument you don't believe in good schools. That's an old tired argument. It has nothing to do with that. Who's going to say, no, I don't believe in good schools? That's not the issue. The issue is what we're doing with the taxpayers' money.
so I feel pretty confident that the law reads that it has to be appropriate through the town meeting process. And again, Patty didn't argue with me on that. What she was telling me is other districts were doing it.
Right.
So I would think this, if the committee overall is in favor of setting up the fund, then I think that you take that vote. Obviously, we're going to get an opinion from legal counsel on it. It'll be prepared for town meeting.
Okay.
And then we just have that conversation at town meeting time.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So I'll second your motion, Jerry.
Thank you.
What was the motion?
A motion to
Just set the account.
approve Article
To approve
32.
it.
To recommend, excuse me, to recommend Article 32.
All right, first and seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that was to approve. Did we have a hold on Article 31?
No,
Oh, okay.
just 37.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Article 31, if she doesn't get that money, she's gonna be over budget, right? And
That is
that's
correct.
gonna be,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't imagine that we're not going to give her the money. That's-
I don't think we have a choice for that.
Yeah.
I think we did the water.
Yeah, so we
Yes,
wanted
water.
to just understand, so we're trying to remember, so we just voted 500,000, which I thought was for them exploring
It is.
a new water source, right? So this 620 is to fix up a current water source?
It's just to continue permitting a new water source. So my guess is that the $80,000.
Oh,
It
Oh,
was
no,
for
I'm talking about-
replacement wells.
I'm sorry?
The 500,000 was for a replacement well for Station 4.
To start,
Replacement well.
to start. That doesn't pay for it.
no, this is a new water source.
So
This is a well replacement.
So the 500,000 is a new
Oh,
well.
okay.
The 620 they're asking for now is to
Okay.
refit piping on an existing one, it looks
Correct.
like.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so that clarifies everything. Thank you, Meredith.
Well, thank you.
Without 38, so there's no problem there either. Okay.
No, just wanted to understand.
Because we put them on hold, or?
Well,
So now we're
I
at
think
46.
we're all the way through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So for the rest of them, do we just vote?
Wait, we didn't,
do them
You still have a hold on
separate,
46, 47, and 48.
or- Oh, we do?
Right,
Right.
the last three.
Right.
I don't even have the last three. Oh, here they are.
This was the zoning bylaws,
Oh, yeah.
facility, and the point on the facility. And then
Whether we
Pearl
should
Road.
refer-
43 through 40.
Right, would we just refer these to voters?
Oh,
Well, I'm
sorry.
not
I
in
think
favor
we
of
had,
that.
I think we had a vote by,
Sorry.
I think Jerry wanted to.
46.
I would make a motion to approve them, only if we were talking about referring. I would disagree, if you want to make a motion to refer, somebody's free to do that, but I would make a motion to recommend, because I think we do have a financial interest to avoid lawsuits. This is, what we have now isn't in line with state law, and I think we should bring the town in line with state law.
I like little town laws. I mean, I understand the one that you're looking
Go
at.
along with you.
Huh?
The one that you're looking at right now, where it goes across 20 feet, is pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But we have some people with some big, good pieces of land, and if you start saying facility, that you could end up being next to one of these guys pretty easy. Right? And I'm just thinking, I mean, I have like 170-foot frontage. I mean, that's gonna get, you know,
Have
I
you ever
like
driven-
having a town. That's why I'm kind of like, I don't really care about being up with the state, but I mean, if that's your suggestion, that's
Well, I
fine.
mean, have you ever driven past that medical marijuana facility on
Yeah, it's the worst road ever, but it's
Scotland,
a shortcut
Elm
to
Street.
Elm Street? You
It's a
wouldn't,
shortcut
A, you
to
wouldn't know
Emmons.
what it is, and
Correct.
B, it's never crowded.
Correct.
3 or 4
Right.
cars.
But
It's not like what you see on
Yeah,
TV.
but we have some open space. We're in some residential areas
Right.
that are not always residential areas that could end up becoming a facility next to someone's house.
That could end up becoming the next Chadwick's. It could be an
Right on.
Amazon factory, and
Right.
we have less to control it and more nuisance factor.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
On the title.
I just,
I think you had 1 and 2, right, to recommend?
that's, yeah, I made a motion to recommend.
There was a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
5 to 1.
Opposed 46 or 47?
I think we did 46, right?
I thought we did all,
Aren't they together?
Well, 46 is just defining what a facility is. 47 is the actual.
So, all right, so I'm fine with defining facility, but I don't like 47 houses.
okay, so 47,
So 47 is a 5 to 1.
5 to 1.
Refer to voters.
The only question I want to pose to the committee then is that if town council says, no, it's one bylaw, you're making multiple amendments to it, so it's one article, then I would interpret that to be then a 5 to 1 vote.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
fine with that.
right.
Okay. Article, don't know. 48, Pearl Road.
Well, I just want to make sure, so what we voted was 47 we recommended it, not referred it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, recommend. You're right.
Recommend,
I
yes.
did not have that right. So it's to recommend it. And Article 48, Pearl Road.
I put a hold because
Yeah.
when these neighborhoods are developed like that, they know fully well an association is formed and they're responsible for the road. That's when they buy, they know that.
Is this like, this is a
I
new,
don't see the advantage of the town now doing it. I don't see a financial advantage because we've got stormwater management that we have to take over now, paving and plowing.
Well,
But
so,
if we take it over, we get money from the state because
Well,
it
the
becomes
question
more
is how
road.
much is
It
it gonna
doesn't
be a
matter how
quid
much
pro
it is.
quo?
Isn't it a good thing then?
so was this developed as a private road?
Yeah,
And the people on the street don't want to be a private road anymore?
that's right.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, my understanding, I know a few people on this road, and they bought it with the plan that the town was going to accept the road at the completion of their development being completed.
They would,
That's not what they were told?
wouldn't be correct, I don't think.
I'm not a developer.
So,
I don't really know the answer.
everything else has had a story.
and you always know the story, so do tell.
It is
I
a
had
story,
heard a
right.
too, but go ahead.
Pearl Road was always designed as a private road.
Okay.
The board permitted it as a private road. The Conservation Commission permitted it as a private road. It was built as a private road. And when people purchased their homes, there was a deed restriction placed that stated that they were going to have to form an HOA. And that was going to then manage and maintain the development. The issue became that these are fairly larger homes that have a larger tax bill than the average home, and insurance companies will not underwrite buses to go onto private roads. So what happened is that their children started to go to the schools buses cannot go down the road. The residents didn't want to have their children, obviously if they're young, have to walk up to the end of the road or sit in the car and wait. And so they began to call the school company, called the bus company, called my office, and they were frustrated because they're paying taxes and they're saying that we should not have to be under different rules than the average person in town.
Right.
The planning board initially stated for about a year, it was a private road, it was permanent as a private road, it's going to remain a private road. But like everything else, pressure mounts. And so the planning board at this point has said that that road has been built according to all planning board standards. We are not accepting a road that is not as wide, doesn't have granite curbing, doesn't have the right specifications, all of that type of stuff. And as a result, has decided to reverse course and said that we will accept the road. The Conservation Commission is concerned because they made arrangements during the permitting process. And so as a result, there has been a gentleman's agreement reached where the HOA is still going to be responsible for some drainage and stormwater management, but not all of it. They would not be responsible for the roads. The town would be responsible for plowing and those types of things. And that is agreement is in legal counsel's hands now being written up. And once it's written, then we'll see what everybody agrees to. And as I said at the selectmen's meeting, in my opinion, but again, I'm not a voter, but in my opinion, if both sides cannot agree, then at town meeting, I don't think it should be approved. Right? If both sides do agree, then it's up to you as voters as to what you want to do. Now, Scott, the reality is this. I don't know the entire length of the road. I think it's about 1.5 miles. We receive $50 a mile, so it's $75. So certainly not enough to cover.
Right on. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But we do receive money.
Yep.
And I understand where
Not
those.
enough for the streetlight.
Yeah.
The electricity, I mean.
We're already at a loss here. We got to put in the street light.
So I understand where those residents are coming from because they are paying taxes, and like everybody else, they're paying taxes so they expect services. However, there is a development in town like Captain Carlson Way,
Right.
where people pay taxes.
Taxes,
and
right.
that HOA covers their fee,
Right.
their road. And I would presume that if you would allow this person to do it, then I would think that people on that road or elsewhere would petition the town as well.
Why not?
And so, again, I'm not trying to take sides on this. I want everybody just to understand what the ramifications are. Is that if you accept that one, you're not receiving a lot of state money for it. You're doing it because you just believe that as a resident, they should be able to have the same amenities and access. But then you should be forewarned that I don't see why other people wouldn't petition the same going forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
What concerns me is that they went into this knowing that it was a
Right.
deed restriction, and now they're upset because the buses can't come down the street. And I've lived on a street like that in Duxbury, and that's the way it was. You know, people didn't want to be, after a while, people didn't want to be a private road because they didn't want to maintain the road, but
Right.
we went into it with that agreement.
Why did they go, does anybody know why they set it up to be a private road to begin with? Is there a reason for that,
I
or?
think in the planning stage, that's when it gets to quid pro quos of the developers to give them permitting and so
Yeah,
forth.
there had to be something
Give and
amiss
take.
there. Like the street I lived on in Duxbury, the lots were non-conforming, so they had to build it as a private road to get permit. The lots were non-conforming.
And I will say, that
Interesting.
and I'm going by memory, I could get this wrong, but my understanding also is that there was a septic issue concern because the septic issue is going to be a shared septic system, or is a shared
It is,
septic system.
yeah.
And I also believe,
Yeah, that's,
That's what we have, shared septic.
so the drainage lines, or I'm sorry, the connection lines to the drainage system, I'm sorry, to the septic system, I believe and some places go under the road.
Oh,
And so from the planning board standpoint, originally they were saying, we don't really want to be involved in whatever
Yeah.
Yeah.
potential issues there could be in the future.
Right.
However, the planning board has come to a conclusion now that they feel comfortable with the engineering that was done, that they would be responsible for certain aspects and the town would be responsible for certain aspects. Again, we don't have an agreement yet in writing, so I don't know what that exactly entails. But that's, so the planning board is attempting, I think, in their quest to try to say, okay, you do pay taxes like everybody else, therefore we want you to get some type of services, but we want to protect the town by having some type of an agreement to protect the town as well. I will tell you, again, I'm not trying to take sides on this, but I do have a concern that whenever there is an agreement, that sooner or later there is a question of the interpretation of that
Oh,
agreement
Yeah, yeah,
5 years later.
yeah.
yeah.
And that is really
less.
my
And that's when the
concern.
lawsuits
I think that
start.
look at, I've met some of the residents, they were at the selectmen's meeting, they seem like they're genuine, they want to do the right thing. I think they legitimately want to put an agreement together that is fair to them and fair to the town.
I mean, what's
But 8 years from now, it may be entirely different
Yeah.
residents,
Right.
right?
Well, so do we know how many private roads we have in town?
I do not know.
So we don't know the potential floodgates were open. We know
If
of
they
one.
paid for the bus to go down their street from association funds, could the bus go
They
down
can't, the
the street?
insurance won't allow it.
Yeah, the insurance won't allow a bus company to go down a private road.
The insurance for the
That's
bus
it.
companies won't allow them.
And again, it seems silly because this is a brand-new road. It's been fully built to planning board specs.
Yeah.
That's why the planning board is comfortable. That's why the residents' argument is a legitimate argument, to say, look,
Yeah.
we didn't cut corners.
Right.
All right? It's a wide road. It has a sidewalk. It has granite curbing. It has all the things that the planning board would normally require. So from their standpoint, it's a legitimate argument.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance, though, on the bus companies, and this is standard across the industry, when they think private road, they're thinking like
Yeah.
an old dirt road
A
that's going to go
driveway.
into
Yeah,
the woods.
Right.
The
And
nicely
think about it.
paved.
Most of the people in this room are parents, right? You hear that the bus went down a private road not maintained by a municipality and something bad happened to your kid,
Yeah.
all right? You are on the phone with an attorney in 30 seconds. And so the insurance companies are trying to mitigate against that.
Yeah.
And again, this road is not dirt. It doesn't disappear in the woods. It's a well-built road. But the insurance companies don't split that in their
Right.
I don't know.
Private, we don't
It's
go down,
private.
period.
You know what?
I could
And
buy a
by the
little
way,
bus
I took my
and
kids
pick-
to- we took our kids to the corner
Yeah.
every day to get the bus,
Yeah,
because the bus wouldn't come down the street.
that's what I don't think they want to do.
But when we were kids, the buses
I
didn't
didn't
go down
mind.
a lot of streets, and we all walked to the corner. It's just not like that anymore.
Uphill in the
No,
woods.
I literally, I was 2 miles away. And
Yeah,
that was
things
the-
have changed.
It was
so
Yeah.
much.
That's what I
I
want.
lived in-
So do we vote on this? This does seem to have a financial
Yes, it
impact to the
does.
town, obviously, so we have to do something here, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna make a motion to turn it down.
I will second that motion,
To turn it down, not recommend it.
not recommend. I just see that,
Not with the story that I have, with the background of it. I mean, maybe when they come back with a decision,
right,
We'll see.
we can relook at it next
Right.
year, but I would, just from what I'm hearing is you had a setup, you had an HOA that was supposed to take care of it, and now we don't, there's just too much.
right, they don't wanna pay into the HOA anymore, they got, and that's really a pain, is paying into the HOA. Maybe they don't have enough reserve to take care of it, and they're looking for an out. We don't know if the people who are there now are the original owners,
Or who will be there next
who will be
year.
there next year, 2 years from now.
Because you have to budget all that in your association for your roads.
And it's tough.
a lot.
And again, I do not, because I don't want to mischaracterize it, I have no knowledge at all
Right.
about whether they don't want to pay into an HOA.
Right. No, we're not saying that.
So, yeah, I just want to make sure if I communicate that, I apologize.
Nope.
That's not what I was-
No,
No, I just,
no, it was, I think where I was
I
going, it
understand,
was, it's a known fact that was the private road. It was always being a private road, and now they're just, because of the buses, it just doesn't make a lot of sense when we have a yin and a yang, and there's not a real discrepancy, there's not a real kind of resolution between the town and that private road.
Right, so to be fair, I want to make, this is the way I understand it. They knew it was going to be an HOA prior road. My guess is nobody had any objections to that.
Yep.
then it becomes, oh, my bus can't go down.
Right.
And then they start to think about it and say, wait a second, I got a $700.
No, I get their plight. No,
And
I get it.
why am I not getting, why do I have to pay for plowing,
Right,
when they're
right.
getting all my taxes?
Right.
And the
Right.
person down the street that's paying half of what I pay gets plowed. So I'm sure that's what they're thinking. I had that conversation, but I think that's a fair guess.
We say that every snowstorm on Captain Carlson Way.
Yeah.
That you hate walking to the bus stop?
No, that's the
That's a plowing.
Plows don't come down the road.
Wait a
and
minute, what
When
do
they
you
come
mean?
down, you might as well just take cash and throw it out your front door.
What did the selectmen say?
The selectmen have not voted to make recommendations. They only voted to place it on the warrant. They'll
Okay.
be making recommendations on May 15th.
Okay.
They normally would be meeting next week, making those recommendations,
Because
but
of-
they can't meet
right,
next week
understood.
because of a conflict.
Like I said, I put
So
that
we
out.
take a
Yeah,
vote?
we have a motion
Yeah,
and a
we have a
second.
second.
Is there a further
Second.
discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Of,
Not-
To
Not recommending.
not
recommending.
recommending.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I oppose
I
that.
oppose.
One for Meredith.
You know
Melissa,
people on-
too.
Two.
You know people on the street.
Oh,
42.
I do, yeah, just,
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel for them.
torn, but I feel like,
That's not the way I understood
it
it.
might look different next year.
yeah, I'm torn though, honestly, because I don't know how many other ones are gonna
Well,
come.
the way-
You know, if this was the only one in town,
They were told that
It-
the town
they
will
knew what
accept
they
the
were
road
getting
once
into.
they finished all the development.
They knew what they were
That's
getting
what I was
into.
told,
They
or
were
that was
lied
my
to.
understanding.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, I have to go with what I know.
well, if it's in the deed, it'd be easy to prove one way or the other, right?
So the 4-2 to not recommend.
Yeah. So do we go through each one of these, or do we do the rest in bulk, or how we?
We would do it in bulk.
Yeah, we do it all, right.
Not recommend, but 2
So there are
is-
any other ones that we didn't want to recommend before we do the bulk, right?
I think we already did all
Well, let me just state which numbers so that it's clear.
Yeah.
Because I know when Kristen watches this to do the minutes. So we are going to vote on Article 1, 2, 3.
Why don't we just say not, we're not gonna vote on? We're gonna vote on everything but.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many, there's 48, we just did, like, holds on one,
Well, we did, so 32 we already voted on,
right.
right? 39 and 40.
16 was that outstanding
And
still?
41.
16 was outstanding.
Let's just count.
Yeah, let's
Article
go
1,
from,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. We've already voted on 32, so 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. We already voted on 39, 40, and 41. We already voted, 42.
no, so 42 would be included, right?
Did I miss 42?
Nope, 42.
42 is the sealer.
Right.
So we're also voting on 42. 43 we've already voted on. 44 and 45 we've already voted on.
Okay.
So then we're all, this vote's going to include Article 46. And
it.
that's all of them. So, is there a motion to approve,
Recommend.
to recommend those articles?
I'll make that.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I do want to go back to Article 4. Do you wanted me to read something about Article 4? Oh, did you already? Never mind. Okay, so that's it for the
Article 4.
articles, for the warrant articles. Number 4, vote on the picture for the FinCom book.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute, I have a picture.
Wait a minute, where are you going?
I have a picture.
Oh, your picture.
Put it in attention.
Everyone pick your picture and show it.
I have a nice picture to put in attention. Let me
Oh,
see,
these
where
are
is
nice
it?
pictures
No,
that we
not the
have
picture of
here.
The guy that cut me off, no, not
You took a picture of a guy cutting you off?
not the
These
picture
are
of the
nice
chickens.
pictures.
Let me see, where is that?
Who submitted these?
Linda, the assistant town administrator, received them. I don't know who submitted them, but she's the one that put them together.
They're very nice, all of them. You have one to put in contention?
Oh, I like that too.
Wait a minute, this is my picture. I took this from my cell phone, of course, on your street.
Oh, yeah, that's the farm.
Yeah.
I like that the field across.
Yeah, isn't that great?
That is great.
In cell phone, I took this picture. That's crazy.
That is very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I don't know, they're
So
all nice.
this guy does this every year. He leaves the hay
Hay,
and
yeah.
the machine out there. Everybody stops and takes
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
That is one of the probably most photographed spots in town. There's
Yeah.
people always stop and take pictures
Yeah.
there.
So anyway, that's my picture. I'm going to enter that into contention here.
Vote for yours.
Huh?
I'd vote for yours.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we can look at the other pictures.
You sure you don't like the windmill?
I like,
Hey, that's the church I got married in. How about that?
Yeah.
Or that's the river I was probably baptized in.
They-
That's such a townie.
Pretty building.
I don't know, they're all nice.
Yeah.
Are we doing color? Because these,
Yeah.
Right. Is there anyone that anyone likes
this
better
might
than
be,
the other to
is
make
this
a
that
motion?
same farm? This looks like the same farm,
Oh, it does.
just not with
Yeah,
the hay.
right.
They do.
I like the one with the war memorial.
Do you change your mind?
The color's very
I
nice.
change mine. That's the
This
one I
one?
like. And I go with any of them. They're all nice.
This one?
No,
Yeah,
the war
War Memorial's nice.
Oh, the one.
Oh, the park.
Memorial
Yeah.
Park, yeah.
Oh, this one, the park.
I do like that one. I think that would look awesome on the cover of the book. Oh wait, but it's going to be turned, right? So it's only the
wait a
picture's
minute.
only going to be half the page.
Better to have a portrait or
Yeah, it would be better off with a portrait picture.
I will leave it up to you.
Oh, it would be, okay, so, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if the book's this way, you
Yeah,
get.
right.
Probably
be a
this one.
more. Yeah,
That one's very pretty.
Portrait.
the
It's
color.
going to be small.
That's nice too.
Maybe we should enter a
I like
couple
the
new
colors
ones.
of the window.
This one would be all right though too. You know, if
Every
you
year.
True, because
Maybe
it's
it's
long.
get it, yeah.
The colors on the side are so nice on that.
On the other one,
On that one.
this one,
I
yeah,
hate to trim it.
Yeah, that looks nice.
yeah. You would lose some of that. Yeah, I like that one.
I like that one.
For that type of cover.
If it's gonna go this way,
Cover, it's going to be vertical.
yeah.
What's that? A War Memorial Park? Okay.
All right.
I like yours.
Motion that-
Sure.
Can you make it portrait next year? And
Yeah.
Sure, when I drive
Try to
by.
get a sunset.
Yeah, get a sunset. Nice clouds. All right, vote on the picture. Oh, do we have to vote?
I have to look at the date I did that, so I know to go by at the same time. June, there we go.
June.
So which one are we doing?
This one.
The
I didn't even see the church.
I do like the
Oh,
church.
right there it is. That's the first one.
church.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
So it's this one here.
Yes.
yeah,
Done.
yeah, that could get us into trouble.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Emotion.
Is there
I'll
a
second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. And the message, I haven't written that yet. That's the letter that goes in the cover of the envelope.
We tried our best.
We tried our best.
Our disclaimer.
So I'll do that in the next week or so, email it around. When you respond, you have to reply.
Yeah, it's to you.
Right, not reply all, because that would violate open meeting.
Understood.
But I need you guys to give me authorization to complete that letter and submit it on our behalf.
Yep, so that's what we've done in the past.
I'll make a motion to let Mary draft the,
Right, but I'll send it around.
and
Please
send it
add
around and.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
And I think we have to go to print next Friday.
Oh,
So
so you're giving me 2 weeks.
So write really
Monday.
No
quick.
problem.
She'll do
I
it on
got that.
Thursday.
Next Friday.
When I do
You
my
got a
best
week and a
work.
day.
Late at night, right before the deadline.
we go to print next Friday, which means he needs a couple of days to print it, to do his printing. So I probably need it by Monday or Tuesday. Probably Tuesday, at least, probably Monday.
Next,
Of
you mean
next week?
this
Oh, you're
next Monday or-
shortening my window?
Yes.
Finish what I was saying. I was saying, if we go to print on Friday, they have to do the draft, we review the draft, so I would need it by Monday or maybe Tuesday, but Monday.
I've never been late.
Never
I've
said
been
you
right
were.
at the
Never said
deadline.
you were. I just always like to have a buffer myself. So.
So you need it by the
Good
6th?
guy you are, Scott, you're very exact.
He needs it by the 6th.
Got it. Oh, okay. I've got a big job on the 7th, so that makes sense.
We're all set.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
No, I mean, at this point, this is all good.
Can we meet again at town meeting? Is that how it goes?
Again, I will post you for half an hour before town meeting in case there's any late business.
What's the date of it
If-
again?
June 3rd.
It's a Monday.
If something does come up between now and then, I will reach out to Meredith, and that way we can schedule a meeting. There will be at least one more meeting between now and through June, because we will have to do some year-end transfers. One is gonna be the snow and ice budget, and then sometimes we have small budgets we have to transfer. Other than that, I don't see anything else on the horizon at this point.
Wow.
So,
We
I'm
really
pretty
are
sure.
done early this
No
year.
one needs money from the FinCom reserve?
We,
Yeah, isn't that something?
no, we may have one. There was an IT issue, so we're looking through it, seeing as to whether or not we need to make a transfer, but if not, but there'll probably be that one.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.